Welcome back to the channel. We're going to continue working on our 1993 Mustang GT convertible. Our painting gnome got the bottom of our radiator support all painted so we can put it in there. You won't have to paint the bottom of it when it's upside down. So we'll put it in there, clamp it up, and then measure it, make sure that nothing's moved. In case there was a light breeze or something, it might have pushed those frame rails around. And if everything's right where it belongs, we'll weld it up and move on. Let's get started. Okay, so before we jump into it, I want to address a comment that I had from the last video on this car. Now, no, this isn't educate an expert. This is actually a question that was asked respectfully by somebody that just wanted to learn. So I'm going to help you learn because I thought it was a very important question. I didn't ask it, I learned it the hard way. So now I'm going to make it easy on you guys and I'll teach you what I learned. So the question was, what do you do if the frame rail is twisted? So it's not square. Ours is square, we already straightened it out, but what do you do if it's not? How do you pull it? Well, before we get into that, I'm going to tell you why it's important that it is straight. So our measurement is here on the bottom. So if our bottom is where it belongs and our top is rotated, say that way, say it's twisted this way, everything you weld to this is going to be shifted that way. So our apron's going to be, pushed in. It's not going to fit quite right. So it does make a difference because you're measuring off of the bottom and it's assuming everything else is the same. So that's why it's really important. I have been burned on that. When I was first learning, I pulled it, everything lined up, didn't realize it was twisted, go to put my parts on and nothing fit. Took me a little while to figure it out. So hopefully this helps you guys out. So what do you do to get it out of there? Well, these are plate-onium, so it's pretty easy. You can clamp on this little lip here and just pull. And if you're pulling, instead of having the chain all the way around it, which is pulling the whole thing together, if you're clamped on the top, the pulling force is towards the top, so it's going to want to roll the top out a little bit. And like I said, it's plate-onium, so it moves pretty easy. If it does, for some reason, pull the top and then the whole rail starts coming with, you just need to secure the bottom somehow. So there's a hole in the bottom here where you tie it down. You can just put a chain in here and chain it to the rack on the other side or use the other ram and then pull against that and it will twist this right out. Easy as pie. So I hope that helps and it is important. So hopefully this lesson taught you something that I had to learn the hard way. And if you guys have any other good questions like that, maybe this is how I will start addressing them because it would have taken me a long time to really type this out in the comment reply and probably wouldn't have showed you what I was talking about. I don't know if this did, but hopefully it helped. All right, last time. I feel like this is not nearly enough of putting it on and taking it off. This were a door, it would be like time 100. Okay, Butterfingers, hold on to it. That probably wouldn't have happened if you were wearing gloves. We'll set it in between the end of our frame rails and set our aprons over the top of our frame rails. Make sure everything's going where it belongs and shove it in there. It's nice when you can leave it all in one piece. Back in the days when cars were meant to be fixed. We'll line up our scribe marks and clamp it up. And we'll measure it and see if it's in the right spot or if we're going to have to move it around. Bottom's good. We're going to use our underhood measurements. Diagonals are always my favorite. Measure front to back. You have a little bit of a problem here. You're going to have to figure that out. And check the other side. This side's good. Recalculating. We're going to check our side to side. So our gauges are right on. Our scribe marks are lined up again, And these are actually factory. The holes are supposed to line up. They don't have to be perfect. They weren't before. But there's another one there. As long as you can see the holes through there, you're good. And everything else lines up, so I think we're ready to weld it up. So our piece is completely welded up and it's not going anywhere, which might not be a good thing because we have a problem. It seems that this measurement is off over here. This is supposed to be at 760 and it's actually at about 750. So we're going to need actually 755. We're going to need to move it about 5 millimeters. Yes, I said millimeters. Burns my tongue to say that, but nonetheless, we have a little bit of a problem. And I know what you're thinking. The haters are already celebrating because I welded it in the wrong spot. Unfortunately, this one isn't my fault. Earmuffs, Ford fans. Okay, you guys aren't listening? Because if you are, you're going to have to try to explain yourselves. Ford's goofed up here. They welded our radiator support in the wrong place. And I'll show you why. And I think I can fix it. And I'm going to go ahead and fix it. Not that it really matters. There's so much adjustment on this fender that it'll probably still line up. I had the fender up here and the bolt holes still lined up. But I think we're going to go ahead and fix it, if for nothing else, to show you why we don't always rely on our scribe marks, because as I've said before, parts aren't always in the right spot. I don't know how this one got so messed up. I don't know if we blame man or machine. I don't know if this was welded by a robot or by some UAW worker that had a few too many at lunch, or maybe not enough at lunch. I don't know. I'm assuming this was done by a person because the welds are just all willy-nilly and everywhere and there's no uniformity to them. So I'm thinking it was just built on a Friday at closing time, probably before a long weekend, so they just didn't really care. So let me show you what's wrong and I'll show you how I'm going to fix it. So that should be in the center of that hole. That's how much it needs to go forward. It should actually fit like that. But I have to take it out of our rear one if I want that to work. So we need to move it forward. And if you look right there, you can see where the problem is. Let's go look at the other side. The other side lines up perfectly, by the way. So this is the other side. You can see the difference right there. So if we move it forward, you can also see, you can see how this is parallel here to this piece, and our gap back here, it's actually beveled and this sits below the bevel. And you can see where the pieces overlap here. So now we'll go to the other side again. And you can see this piece, it's not parallel. The gap gets wider at the back and it's actually overlapping our bevel here. So it needs to go, this whole piece right here, which is the radiator support, needs to go forward. Now there's only 4 spot welds here. So I think if I drill these spot welds out and push this forward, we're gonna bend some of what's in here, but it's probably not in the right spot anyway. So we're just gonna push it out and weld it up, and that'll put our adjustment here right in the center where it belongs. And if we need to move our fender forward, we can, because there is adjustment in those fenders, but right now it's pretty much at the front edge of the back one and the back edge of the front one, which means that the fender can't go front to back if we needed to. And the last thing I want to do is get it all together and not be able to fix my gaps if they're wrong. We're going to go ahead and scribe it so you can see how far it moves, or it doesn't move, I don't know. We're going to try and move it. I take it back, we're going to move it. Of course, part of this mark you're not going to be able to see because it's going to overlap it when it's where it belongs. So when you move this forward, this piece is going to come out. There's actually too much room underneath here in the back. So that'll close up. When it comes this way, this piece will come out. So it should straighten up our line and move this forward. In theory, anyway. That's how it works in my head. Wait to listen to the compressor. Yay. Turns on compressor, immediately grabs electric tools. But we're going to need the compressor later when we go to clean up the bottom of that and when we go to pull it. We're just going to drill our spot welds. Not all the way through. I don't want to weld up holes. Then we'll use our breaker, our actual breaker. Our 5-in-1 tool wouldn't get all the way down in there. And we bent it up a little bit, that way we can clean up the bottom of it and put our weld through primer in there. And now we can just give it a little pull. Stretch it out where it belongs. I think the apron is actually a little far back as well, so we're just going to kind of split the difference here. In order to move that apron forward would take a lot more work. And since this measurement actually matters as far as our underhood measurements, we're going to go ahead and correct it. Now we got it where you want it, so we'll go ahead and clamp it up. Okay, a little fine tuning. We'll measure it, make sure it really is where we want it. So far, so good. Put another clamp on here. Don't need to adjust it anymore, hopefully. And we'll measure it one last time. Make sure that clamp didn't move anything. It drops right in like it's supposed to. So we can go ahead and weld up our 4 holes. Pull our clamps off and hope it stays where we put it. Good radiator support. And that's what's known in our industry as a factory F-up. But we fixed it. I can't wait to see how the Ford fans explain that one away. I guess we know why Ford stopped using that slogan, quality is job one. Quality is job none. So you can see our scribe line was back here before. We moved it forward about that 5 millimeters. And our gap is the same all the way down. These pieces are parallel. And we open that up a little bit. So I don't know how it got messed up, but it did. Got a little bit of a bend to this other piece in here for that to move forward, but it'll be fine. That doesn't matter as much as that does, since that's where the fender mounts. We have the car off the rack and over here in the corner, and yes, of course, it's a Ford, I had to push it. Now we're gonna go ahead and strip everything down, get it ready for the painting gnomes and the grinding gnome. But we'll get everything out of it so that after he's ground it down, it could just be painted. We'll also strip down our new hood and get that ready so they can just edge everything out. We'll be ready to throw it together. And then while they're doing that, we'll go change our engine parts. We'll pull our airbag crash sensors out of here. And thanks to that one expert that told me there were 3 when I only removed 1 last time, I do have trouble counting to 3. Unbolt our hood latch. Save that, we're gonna need it. And we can start unclipping the harness for our crash sensor that's about 3 miles long. Thanks, Ford. And pull off our 3rd crash sensor. We'll pull off our rubber baby buggy bumpers. There's just 2 tabs on the bottom you squeeze together. They pop out if they haven't broken already. We're going to unbolt the base for the prop rod. Not sure where our prop rod went. And pull out the rest of the clip that was on there. And remove all of our little J-nuts for our fender brackets. We want to have everything out of the way for them to paint. Pull our extra bolts out of our bumper shock mounts. My Kung Fu grip wouldn't take that one out, so we're going to have to use some pliers. Break it loose. And now we can go and strip our hood down. We'll pull the safety latch out. Then we can pull out our little tension spring. This is what pops the hood up when you pull the latch. Then we'll take the J-nuts off for all that stuff. We can pull our hood insulation off. A bunch of little push pins. A lot of them. And we can go set this off to the side. Then we can pull our hood light off. Try not to break any of the tabs. And the rest of the harness. This hood was actually in remarkable shape. No rust, no dents. It was really nice. Hard to believe it's 30-something years old. Now we need to change our broken exhaust manifold studs. But first we'll change the non-broken ones because they're easier to get out. So we run one nut all the way up there. We'll run another nut up to it. Pull the first one with a wrench. Tighten the second one up to it. And we'll use another wrench to make sure it's really tight. And that gives us something to turn on. And we'll give it a shot. Yeah, I didn't actually think that was going to come out of there without breaking.
I think so.
So we're going to have to go get the fire wrench. We already had the fire wrench out because I know what to expect. I'd also like to point out the Fram filter that's already on this engine, just to upset the internet. We're just going to heat the manifold where the stud goes through. We're not actually trying to heat the stud and melt it. We're trying to heat the manifold to expand it. Of course, the stud is also going to get hot too, but we're trying to concentrate our heat on that little ear of the manifold itself. Get it nice and cherry red. And try not to touch it. Even though it looks enticing, it hurts. And of course our nuts broke loose, so we'll run them back on there and see if we can jam them on without having to use 2 hands. And it worked. So the easy side is done. Now we gotta do the other side. Can't put any nuts on this side because the threads are all broken. This was the abbreviated version. Do the same thing. We're gonna heat up that ear. Taking a little more time with this one. Make sure I don't heat the stud as much. We're going to stick a pair of vice grips on there. And test our luck. Once we get it broke free, we're just going to work it back and forth a little bit. Usually once they start coming, they'll come out. Angle our vice grips a little bit and see if we can get a little more of a turn on it. And it's cooling off, so it's getting a little more difficult to turn this. But we'll keep trying until our vice grips slip.
This is the part where the tool experts go down in the comments and tell me that those are not vice grips, that they are locking pliers, and vice grips is actually a brand name. Well, lucky for me, those are actually vice grip brand. We're working our way around, slowly but surely. Eventually it's going to stop when it cools off too much. And our vice grip slip. So now we're going to clip it on. We're not going to get any torque this way, but we're going to heat it up one last time, hopefully, and it should spin right out. We shouldn't need much to take it out when it's nice and warm. Heat it up. Hopefully not the vice grips. And we'll give it a spin. Comes right out. This is a lot easier to do on the floor rather than in the car, which is another reason that I wanted to pull the engine, as if there weren't already enough. We have our new studs that are a little bit thicker, so I'm going to have to get a tap to tap those out. They're the updated version, so that they hopefully don't end up like the old ones. So we'll take the side apart, same way we did the other side. We're going to start with the easy part first, just to boost our confidence, give us some hope that we're going to be able to do this without breaking anything off in the manifold. This one we have to work back and forth a little bit. And we got it out of there. Now on to our problem child. Once you get them moving a little bit, you can pretty much relax. It's when they don't want to move at all that you have to worry. A little more heat. Going to go around that flywheel cover without mangling it. And we're out of the woods. 4 successful stud removals.
While we're waiting for those to cool down, let's replace this nasty, rusty old pipe for the air injection with something shinier. Well, this isn't the same. Oh well.
How dare you!
That pipe wasn't doing anything anyway, and it's a lot easier to take it out now than when it's in the car, and it's quite the fight. So we'll go ahead and replace it. We'll throw it in the trunk of the car, and if the new owner wants to put it all back on, they can.
That'll make working on this a little easier without that pipe in the way, and Mother Nature already deleted the air pump anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Now we're going to remove our bumper shocks from our bumper reinforcement. The bumper shocks get painted on the car, so we're going to go ahead and put those on. I got a complete front bumper assembly, so this is just the insides of it. Need to switch from the ratchet because it wouldn't pull these out. That one was a little rusty. And so was that one. Seems like the bottom inside ones were rusty. Now we can stick our bumper shocks in there. We did have the painting gnome paint the mounts where they go. Normally there isn't paint behind them, but since we were there, we had them painted up. And then we'll bolt our bumper shocks in. And if you're wondering why I didn't clean up the rust on the insides of the shock that go in the frame rail, well, it slides into the inside of the frame rail, and it's going to scratch up all that paint and rust anyway. So I just cut out the middleman. We'll put them in rusty and save it the time. Work them down to manufacturer specs. Put the one on the other side. Bolt it in. And tighten them down. Click. Click. Now we have our old studs for the 4-cylinder airbox. We need to take them out of here. They're mounted in rubber, so we got to kind of be careful. So we're going to take them off the same way we took off the studs for the exhaust manifolds. We'll run one nut on there, and we'll run another nut down to it and jam them together. And we're going to pray. And break it loose before we rip the rubber apart. Surprisingly enough, it wasn't all rusted and came right out. I didn't want to use any penetrating oil on there because he does have to paint it, and if you get oil under the paint, you end up with problems. So if I can avoid using any kind of oil, I will. I would have heated it up first if I thought I had to, but it came right out. So now we're going to push our luck with the other side. I have to take the nuts back off there because I only had 2. Lock them together. Pray and twist. And it worked again. Now that we got those out of there, we'll pull our little wire holder out of here. It's actually for the paper canister line.
So our grinding gnome got everything ground down, and our painting gnome has everything prepped. Well, there's a couple little spots left, but he'll take care of those, and then as soon as he paints it, we can throw it all back together. But that's really as far as I can go for today. And I got some bad news for you guys. There is no educate an expert this week. Appears the experts were very quiet in the last video. Was it something I said? Well, maybe I did everything right. Yeah, that's definitely not it. I would imagine we're probably gonna get some experts in this video trying to defend Ford and their little goof up here. So maybe I'll have something for you next week. Until then, thanks for watching.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take sh- I got no love